Welcome to the Power of Design podcast, where we have inspiring conversations that explore the intersection of architecture, construction, and real estate, so we can understand the dynamics and trends that shape an exciting and powerful built environment. This is your host, Jack Osa. In today's episode, I had a great time interviewing Simon Foster. Simon works for Jones Lang Lasalle in Charlotte, North Carolina. He is the portfolio strategy lead for the Bank of America account. Simon is a deep thinker with a very analytical mind. He has over 30 years of management experience leading organizations through rapid workplace transformations. During our conversation, we talk about growing up in Essex, England, migrating to the United States, and the massive workplace experience shift that is happening in our world today. Simon is a person who thrives in disorder and chaos. If you want to find out more, please take a listen to this episode. Simon, welcome to the Power of Design podcast. How are you today?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm doing excellent.
Good.
Simon, you are currently in charge of helping Bank of America strategize and manage more than 50 million square feet of office space, impacting thousands of employees globally. How do you think workplace design and experience can give a large organization a competitive advantage in the marketplace?
That's a great question to start off with, but I think we're at a point of evolution, and I think maybe the best way to start is to give you a quote of a great Englishman, seeing I'm not such a great Englishman. Winston Churchill, very insightful leader. He said something very profound back in 1943. So in 1941, London was in the middle of the Blitz, which was the German Luftwaffe bombing London. And the Houses of Parliament, House of Commons, where the members of Parliament met, was badly damaged by bombs. And so there was a debate going on about how it needed to get rebuilt, and there was a lot of pressure from many people to make it much bigger. And Winston Churchill, in the debate, had recognized how the House of Parliament could get really packed and busy and create a buzz. And so he said in a speech in 1943, we shape our buildings, thereafter they shape us. And I think that was really, really profound thing to say, because he recognized the impact that space has on the way we work back in 1943. So it's absolutely crucial, and it's been really interesting looking back and thinking back on my career, but also, talking to other people as how the workplace has increased in importance and what happens in that workplace and how design can actually help that. And interesting, we're sitting here now in our incubator space, which is really new. It's very exciting. We can talk a little bit more about that. Mm-hmm. But I was actually called my dad last week. He was 80 years old. He's based in London. And so we did it on FaceTime, and I was in the office. And so I said, hey, look at our new office. And I showed him a little video. And he, as you'll find out, was I spent 2 years in the US back in the 1970s, and he recounted immediately. Said, "Wow, that's really different to the American office I was imagining, because in the 1970s when I worked for Ford's, it was all cubicles." Mm-hmm. And that was the latest innovation, cubicles. And what was very interesting is, as you got promoted, each grade, you got an extra 12 inches of height on your cubicle.
Wow.
And so that was the status that was coming through.
Yes.
And until you had an enclosed office when you were very, very senior.
Sure.
But it's been very interesting to see how things have evolved since then, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that. But that was just a very interesting thing. So, in summary, I think it's absolutely right at the very pinnacle of an organization's opportunity to build the right spaces to get people, their most important asset, their employees, really engaged and excited about working for the bank or for whatever organization it is.
Sure. And I know we had conversations in the past when we talk about, in general, any organization, your biggest expense is going to be your employees,
Yep.
Payroll. And the second biggest expense is use of space.
Yes.
So when you're talking about large organizations, any small increment improvement you can make, if any of those two, may mean millions of dollars.
That's absolutely true. Although I think corporations do fall into a trap here sometimes. It is a big number, which for me is a big opportunity. However, the impact on their most valuable, their most expensive asset is what you should be focusing on. And certainly what I'm seeing in the latest innovation, the ability to improve the engagement, to make people feel really productive, happy, excited to work in a space is first and foremost. And actually, it just so happens, it's serendipitous that with the ability to create those sort of spaces, you can actually save significant sums of money because you start to use the space much more efficiently. And come back to the Winston Churchill, he recognized that actually more space wasn't necessarily more productive. In fact, it was the opposite. He wanted to create that collaboration, that buzz, because he saw that actually good decisions got made out of that.
That's awesome. Tell me about you. Where did you grow up, and how did you get here?
Well, I didn't grow up around here, as you probably can guess.
Sure.
I think both you and I arrived here at certain times. So I grew up most of my life in the east of London in England, about 30 miles east in a place called Essex. Apart from the 2 years that I actually was over in Detroit, because my father was working at Ford Motor Company. And to be honest, it was very exciting time for me in the 70s. As a young kid, I was very impressionable, and I never wanted to leave. And it was always a goal of mine to come back and work in America. I just really loved the attitude. But we moved back after a couple of years, and so I grew up in Essex, and that's where my formative years were spent.
Nice. So did you go to school there?
I did. I went to school there, and actually I had plans when I was very young. I always wanted to fly fast jets for the Royal Air Force. And I actually got a flying scholarship when I was 17 and got my pilot's license before I could actually drive. I actually failed my driving test.
Wow.
Whilst I had a pilot's license. I wasn't very happy about it at the time. Unfortunately, when I came to actually do the full application, I think I was a bit too young. I was 17 years old, and the recommendation was to go around the world and experience life a little bit, and then come back. And little things in life create big changes. So I went off to college onto the south coast in Brighton, and I did a degree in accounting and finance. And then came back and was looking for a job, and I got involved while I was studying. It was an exciting time in London. There was a thing called Docklands, which is now known as Canary Wharf, but it was really the largest regeneration across Europe. The London docks had fallen into terrible disrepair, and so the Conservative government, Margaret Thatcher at the time, gave some huge tax breaks to encourage companies to try and regenerate. And so that was the sort of the start of Canary Wharf. And I got involved working in real estate whilst I was at college, just helping developers make lots of money, shall I say. There was big opportunities. It was very exciting. And so that's when my first experience of real estate. But I quickly, after coming out of college, went a more traditional route. I'm an accountant by profession, so I got my professional qualifications, and I started working in banks. My first bank was Gyrobank. You wouldn't have heard of Gyrobank, but it was really the sort of banking arm of the UK Post Office.
Okay.
And working on their trading floor, and then started to sort of progress in that. So literally I worked really across a number of banks in very different areas. I worked at Bankers Trust and Deutsche Bank, handling their futures and options, and ultimately ended up at Credit Suisse, where I really sort of fell into corporate real estate. So that was my first real experience in corporate real estate.
Nice. And how was that opportunity that make you come to United States and being here today?
So, as I say, I always wanted to come back, and I several times in my career tried to get a job, but it's not easy to actually get a visa.
Oh, sure.
But these things happen for a reason. You know, we had young children. It was expensive to move us and everything. So, but we never gave up. And my wife was the one that really encouraged me when I was complaining one day that I'd never had a chance to work in the States. She said something to me, which was, if you want something bad enough, you can make it happen.
Sure.
Wise words. We should listen to our wives much more.
Yeah, it sounds like my wife.
And so it came at a time when I was at Credit Suisse. I'd been there for about 15 years. I was head of corporate real estate for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. We'd done some really exciting things. But things were changing. And I was very conscious that I hadn't been on the other side, the service provider side.
Right.
And the industry was changing. Many companies, including Credit Suisse, we were looking at, and we were doing various forms of outsourcing to the service providers. And I knew the folks at JLL very, very well. They were I was their client, a very nice client, by the way.
Good.
And I knew John Forrest, who was the CEO at the time in Asia Pac. So I basically had a conversation. And said I'd be really interested, but I really wanted to do that in the US. Mm-hmm. And to JLL's credit, they helped me to do that. It took a year. So 5 years ago I joined, but from visa regulations, you have to work for a year before you can apply for the visa. So I came in and joined them on the HSBC account. And then literally a year to the day, I was offered a role to be the global account director at JP Morgan Chase. Mm-hmm. And that brought me over here. So I've been here for coming up to 4 years now. And we've been loving it. Loads of great experiences.
Yeah. Nice. So tell me about your role today. What are your responsibilities? How do you work?
Yep. So what's exciting is... working on this account is a real partnership with the bank. They outsource to JLL a significant proportion of work, and I'm responsible for strategy, and I have a number of functions that report into me. Lots of really clever people, but they are key, and we have key strategic partners with the Bank of America, and we work together to really look at ways of optimizing that portfolio, using the space in the right way, and being innovative, and then also making sure that there's a real opportunity to drive to what does the bank look like in the future. And how can we get the best talent?
Yeah.
And how can we show that the space really helps them in their job?
Yeah. What do you think sets you apart as a professional and uniquely qualified to lead that effort?
I think I struggle with the word professional. I don't feel very professional, actually.
I think you are.
Well, I think that I'm a bit different. Because I think I love spontaneity. I kind of thrive on disorder and chaos.
Nice.
I think what maybe sets me apart is they're not very professional terms I just use there, but I think I recognize the importance of getting great people with many of those qualities and other qualities, diverse qualities, excuse me, around me, and also involved in the projects that we're working on.
Right.
And that's what I love about this job, is the fact that we will not be successful unless we have that diversity.
Yes.
Diversity of thinking, people that will challenge the status quo. I mean, these sound like buzzwords, but it's absolutely true. And then we do need those people that are much more structured and ordered to actually drive things through as well. But it's everybody with those different disparate skill sets coming together to actually be at the top of their game to actually deliver. So I think loving people and being really interested in people, genuinely interested in people, and recognizing disparate skill sets is something that makes me maybe be a little bit more successful.
We'll be right back with more from the Power of Design podcast.
The Power of Design podcast is brought to you by OSA Studio, a multidisciplinary design firm focused on creating impactful experiences through the power of design. We partner with our clients to create buildings, interior spaces, brands, and strategies that help you deliver a successful project. As a minority-owned firm, we are committed to building a diverse platform of curious and driven design professionals so we can together pursue our full potential. For more information, please visit us at www.osastudio.com.
Sure, yeah, I think that's very interesting because for any large organization, we know that structure and order is what, keeps control in something that's growing. But I think when
it annoys the heck out of me.
Sure, but when you overlay, the tension between the opposites, like what is this disorder and chaos? What's the beauty in it? The serendipity happening around it, spontaneity, like the more, I see like more structure, more machine, less structure, more human. But we live somewhere in between that line, that tension.
I totally agree.
And identifying where does an organization land in that spectrum. And I think one of the problems we're having with large organizations today is that they're too machine-like.
I totally agree. I think there's a whole load of reasons, but I see large organizations really struggling to be what they need to be, which is agile. And it's what their employees want them to be. They want to feel like they have some sort of control, that they can do their job and be trusted. But a lot of compliance, a lot of regulation, I could talk a lot about that it brings huge inefficiency and frustration.
Yes.
Because large organizations struggle to reward innovation, and they are very good to punish failure or perceived failure.
Yes.
And that is a dangerous environment we're in.
Yeah, and I think just looking at the modern workplace we use today is not very old. It might be 100 years old. The whole setup of groups, offices, and some kind of technology and organized people toward a common goal. And I think it's been a while that now we as humans are realizing that we built these organizations for machines. So the perfect employee for that organization is a robot. You go, you do what you have to do every day, do it well, and come back next day and do it again.
Well, it's just as well because we're going to have robots very soon.
Sure. But at some point we're realizing that this setup is not very conducive to living a fulfilling life. To living a life where you feel that you're experiencing your full potential, where you're expressing yourself. And I think it got reduced to, 40 hours a week. In there, I don't love it, but pay the bills, and then you're 65, 70 years old, and then you got just a little bit of time to kind of enjoy the fruits of those labors. And I think that's where the really breakthrough is happening.
I would agree totally. There's a real shift from materialism, when I am working hard to get material things, to actually I want to experience things. I want to experience life. And that's what employees, people, clients, customers are demanding. I want a great experience. And so, there's a great opportunity there. But it's really, really important that we think about that and the balance of that. It's interesting you mentioned AI and robotics, because I think there's two sides of thinking of that. One is, the perceived fear, oh, I'm going to lose my jobs, but actually it's going to open up opportunities for people to actually have great experiences and use their time in a wise way. And what frustrates me a lot is the inefficiency that we see today in the jobs that we do, because we have not harnessed technology properly and we haven't taken data properly. And so a lot of what I see happening is people doing really robotic things, but they're doing it because we're not set up for that.
Yeah, and because it's always been done that way, and you go to school, you get a degree, and you go to a place, and you see everybody doing something, and you're like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do, and not realizing the high price you're paying by just assimilating, that traditional culture that is in place.
The interesting thing is, everywhere outside of the office and the workspace, people are having on a daily basis seamless experiences, consumer experiences, and we're playing catch up in real estate because as soon as you walk into a building, you're not having that experience. That's the challenge we've got. We should be giving that kind of experience. But we seem to struggle with that at the moment, and that's what I think makes it so exciting. We're at that point of inflection where we can actually, corporate real estate, the office, the workplace is playing catch up. But when it catches up, it's going to just augment that sort of wider experience that people are having these days.
Sure. What is the biggest challenge that your clients are facing today?
That's a good question as well. I think the biggest challenge they're facing, large corporations are facing, is there's an imbalance between the pursuit of short-term goals and investing for longer-term growth. And what I mean by that is, when I first started out in corporate real estate, there were visionaries that were out there.
Yeah.
I worked for a visionary, a guy called Luther L. Terry Jr., who was really instrumental in driving some massive change at Credit Suisse. He was the guy that basically took Credit Suisse from the center of London to Canary Wharf. We were tenant number 1 or 2. And we actually owned our building there when nobody was doing that. He did the same thing in New York and moved Credit Suisse down to Midtown South when that was a needle park. Mm-hmm. He did that because he had a vision, and he also was supported by the executives at the high enough level to actually make that happen. Now, the time period that took, that would have gone from looking like the worst decision in the world to the best decision and back again, because the life cycle goes through. But he was supported all the way through. I'm not saying it was easy. It wasn't easy at all. And he was a tough guy to work for, let me tell you. But we got to where we needed to be because he had that support and because he had that vision.
Right.
I think today I see massive change happening too quickly. I don't see that support. And I think that large organizations, particularly banks, and if I go back in the Credit Suisse days, JP Morgan Chase, HSBC, because they went through such a shock on the financial crisis, it changed what it was like to work there, and the people that worked there. And I see that there are too many people that survive by not making decisions, keeping their head down, or being very, very good at shooting, inverted commas, people that have made a decision.
Yeah.
And so there's a culture of fear that I think in large organizations is hindering progress. And we talk about fail and fail fast. They're buzzwords, but it's really important. You need to create a culture where people are encouraged to try things and not to be punished for them. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest challenge. And you can hang a lot off of that from the corporate real estate piece, because you've got to break there's a disconnect between the life cycle of corporate real estate and real estate. It takes time to have the vision, to implement that vision, and then see success, and the business cycle. And so strategic decisions will look brilliant and will look terrible within the sort of their life cycle.
Yeah.
So that's a long-winded answer, but I
Sure,
think
no,
for
it's
me
very
that
interesting.
really
Yeah.
that really is something that's a massive challenge.
So based on that, how will the workplace would look like in 20 years?
I think the workplace, I would say, what we'd have learned to have done is harness the power of technology, and also grab data in the right way to actually be much more informed in what we do. I think it will enable people to really do what they want to do, when they want to do it, and how they want to do it. I think there's so much further we need to go. Clearly, AI and robotics is going to play a factor because the very nature of work will change.
Right.
But I think the workplace will continue will be an extension of the world that we live in outside. So it's blurring the boundaries.
Sure.
And that will become even more seamless.
Yeah.
So we can work. But coming back to Winston Churchill, there's a power when you create an environment that helps you be more productive, feel more engaged. You want to come to work.
Yeah.
And it's not coming to work. You want to come to a place where you bump into people, you have great interactions. It was interesting. Last week I took another large firm around the space, and they were telling me about one of their very, very senior leaders who, when they moved into the new space that they designed, actually purposely wanted their office, and they had an office, but they wanted their office to be as far away from the entrance as possible, because they wanted to have unintentional and intentional bumps into people
Right.
all the way through.
Sure.
That journey to their office and back
Yeah.
again, because they saw the value of that.
Yeah. Nice. I think there are two very interesting topics, and which is the corporate real estate world. And I think one is how we as humans relate to space, and a space for a specific function, and two, how we as humans relate to work.
Yeah.
And I think there is a huge problem from the employee side, just because we just learn it through whatever it's been happening through generations, and we just behave the same. And I think when that shifts is gonna be major, which is, I think we still are living in I think we live in a workaholic society.
We do.
I think that's created because people attach their meaning to work. So
Yes.
work is what you do, is not who you are. And most people think that they are their work. So we created a scenario for that to happen.
Yeah.
So you reward machine-like behaviors. You reward, how many times you hear people, you ask somebody, hey man, how you doing? Busy. Yeah. That's like a badge of honor.
It is.
Man, been working
Status.
80 hours a week. So you're supposed to say, man, that's good, man. Like, it's good that you're neglecting yourself and your family. So I think when we change that mindset of identity, is gonna impact big time the space that we allow to make that happen.
I could not agree more with you. We should go out for a coffee afterwards.
Sure.
You've absolutely hit on that. And I think it's a big observation I've had. I love looking at differences, and I get asked, what's the difference between working here and working in England? One of the big things you've just absolutely hit on, and Kathy, my wife, and I were talking about this, it's this perceived status about what you do that makes who you are.
Yeah.
I totally disagree with that. Fundamentally disagree with that. And I think, going back when I was at Credit Suisse, I remember falling into that trap. It was in like the Wall Street days. Remember that movie Wall Street? And Michael Douglas goes, lunches for wimps. You remember that comment?
Uh-huh.
And I thought, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
What an idiot.
Sure.
And what an idiot I was for thinking that. We were looking to co-locate all our offices in Paris. We had 6 offices, and my job with my team was to pull them all into a single co-location. And we chose to do that in July and August. And it was a sense of real frustration to me at the time, because if you went to Paris in August, they all went on holiday. And I was like, who are these people leaving at 5, when I was doing all these hours? Oh, what losers. And actually, then it began to dawn on me, no, I think it's the other way around.
Sure.
They were getting the right balance. Now, listen, at the end of the day, it's really, really important to get the right balance. But I do think, and I do see, especially in the US, and it's generic, it's a generic observation, there's a culture of fear that if I don't come to work, don't do the 80 hours, I don't say I'm so busy, someone else will come in and take my job, and then I'll lose something. And I think that's a fallacy. So I say to my team, and they know it, you need to take your holidays. Why on earth have you not taken your holidays? Or why do you only go for a long weekend? I'm used to taking 2-week holidays. And it's a balance. You've got to get the job done, but you do not need to do that.
Sure.
I'm talking last night with my wife, and she was talking about her friends, and her friend's husband has only taken 2 days holiday this year.
Wow.
And that's just crazy.
Yeah.
And actually, ultimately, you are far less productive, far less efficient.
Completely.
And yet, it's that coming back to that culture of fear. And we've got to get past that. So I really want to encourage that.
Sure.
Let's, take loads of holidays. But no, it's about being smarter in the way you work. And I think the workplace, when it's done properly, and technology, when it's leveraged properly, gives you the opportunity. Can we change our values and that perceived status? I think it's nonsense. Why should someone that's a doctor, actually that's probably quite a good profession, but someone that's the managing director of whatever, be any more valuable than someone who doesn't have that title?
Oh, sure.
It's complete nonsense.
Yeah.
And family is the most important thing.
Yeah.
By miles. Nobody ever said on their deathbed, I wish I'd spent more time in the office.
Yeah. So, we could dig in more and do probably another podcast
We are.
just on that. And I think
know.
we're just set up the stage for podcast number 2. How does the power of design impact who you are and what you do?
Well, I think, we just talked all the way through it. It's very, very clear. If you create a great environment, you can achieve great things. And I think it's no accident that some of the great workplaces now that you see are in companies that people really aspire to be. Going back, people wanted to work for Goldman Sachs, they wanted to work for Morgan Stanley, because they were prepared to put up with a pretty tough environment, because there was this pot of gold perceived at the end of the rainbow.
Right.
That has really changed quite a lot. People don't come out of college saying they want to work for Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley. They want to go and work for Google or for Apple.
Sure.
Amazon, some of those companies. And when you look at some of the spaces they've got, I think they've changed the environment, and they've said, they've recognized the importance of the design and how it feels and how they're treated on the overall productivity, the value of their employees, and people want to go and work for them. Yeah. That's the challenge we have here. People don't want to come and work for Bank of America per se, or for JP Morgan Chase, but we have an opportunity to say, actually, let's create an environment where they do want to.
Yeah.
And we can go and get those very best people that we need, and they will love working here and feel energized, and we can show that they're more productive. There's the challenges. They're the exciting things that we've got on the horizon that we're working on.
That's awesome. Well, Simon, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you sharing your story and your insights, and I look forward to stay connected and continue the conversation.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed your coffee.
I did. It's
All
awesome.
Right. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Design podcast. Remember to rate and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Find out more about Jack and Osa Studio at osastudio.com and follow us on Instagram at the Power of Design podcast. Thank you.